This Day in Sports History. This episode is brought to you by the Stirling Soap Company. I'm a big fan of shave soap. I've been using different brands for years, and I recently gave Stirling's shave soaps a try, and I've been very happy with the results. Stirling's shave soaps give you a great lather and a frictionless feel that allows the razor to glide right over the skin for a super close shave. No skin irritation and a clean, refreshing feel with no soapy residue after. I can tell you without a doubt, it's simply the best shave I've ever had. And my wife has noticed too. And here's the thing. With the ability to purchase 1-ounce sample pucks, you can try out different scents to find the right one for you. Give Stirling Soap a try today. Visit stirlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com. And welcome back to This Day in Sports History. I am your host, Steve White, for another trip around the sports history world. This Day in Sports History is a member of the Sports History Network, and you can find more great podcasts and more info at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's September 6th, and on this day in 1976, a horrifying scene played out in front of thousands at San Diego's Jack Murphy Stadium. And as ghastly as that scene was, it would eventually lead to a revolutionary piece of equipment. The Los Angeles Dodgers were playing the San Diego Padres on this night. It was another pleasant Southern California evening. I mean, come on, it's San Diego, the most boring place to be a TV weather person, right? Anyway, Dodger catcher Steve Yaeger was kneeling in the on-deck circle waiting for shortstop Bill Russell to take his cuts against San Diego's Randy Jones. Russell slapped at a Jones offering and hit a routine grounder down to third. Doug Rader came up with it, and he threw to first for the out. But hardly anybody was looking at what was going on the field. Instead, all eyes focused on Yaeger in the on-deck circle. Russell had broken his bat, and a large shard of it flew 50 feet like an arrow, and it plunged into Steve Yaeger's neck. Yaeger collapsed to the ground as if he'd been shot. Blood poured from the wound, but the one thing that Yaeger did not do that undoubtedly saved his life is he did not try to remove it. The bat shard had missed his jugular vein, but not by much. A doctor came rushing out of the stands, and Yaeger, still conscious, was able to sit up. Later at the hospital, doctors performed surgery on him for about 90 minutes, safely removing the shard and splinters. The following day, in a consultation with a doctor, he was told that he could never take another impact to the throat again. It would kill him. Yaeger was a catcher in the major leagues, so a foul ball or a wild pitch could turn into a death sentence for him. So, did he retire? He did not. He'd be back on the field in 19 days with a new piece of equipment designed by Yaeger and the Dodgers trainer. A throat guard made from reinforced molded plastic that dangled from his catcher's mask to protect his throat from foul balls and wild pitches. It was soon adopted by other catchers in the league, and now a throat protector is built into each catcher's mask as part of the wire cage that protects his face and his neck. And all that came about from the nearly tragic accident that occurred on this day in 1976. On this day in 1995, a streak of legendary proportion was finally eclipsed because Cal Ripken refused to take a day off. It was a record a long time in the making, and to pull it off requires stamina beyond that of mere mortals. It requires a commitment to show up and do the work every day. It requires a person willing to lean into the mundane. And you also better be pretty good at what you do so the coach keeps putting you in the lineup. Baltimore's Cal Ripken was indeed inserted into the lineup on this day at his usual shortstop position, hitting fifth in the lineup, and he started his 2,131st consecutive game, breaking Lou Gehrig's record for consecutive games played. Of course, the game had to get past 4.5 innings for it to become official, but with a warm 89-degree day in Baltimore on this night, there was no threat from Mother Nature to make the baseball world wait any longer. 46,000 fans packed Camden Yards to watch their O's play the California Angels and to see the game's new Iron Man do what he always seemed to do. When the Angels' Damian Easley popped out to end the top half of the fifth, the game became official and a 25-minute celebration began. Ripken understood the importance of what he'd done, but he didn't feel like just doing what he loved every day deserved more than a few curtain calls and a wave of the hat. But Charm City wanted to celebrate with him, and so after wave after wave after wave of his hat, the screams and adulation continued until Ripken, sensing that more was being asked of him, began a slow trot around the ballpark, shaking hands and giving high fives to fans, teammates, opposing players, and coaches, and his family. Cal had made things a little more special back in the fourth inning when he'd hit a solo shot to deep left. The Orioles won the game 4-2. Ripken continued his streak, playing another 501 straight games before ending it on September 19, 1998, at 2,632 games. The streak nearly ended in 1993, though. On June 7th of that year, Ripken woke up with stiffness in his knee after getting mixed up in a benches-clearing brawl against Seattle. That would have ended his streak 340 games shy of the mark. So we've talked about a couple of baseball tough guys already in this episode. How about this one? On this day in 1924, St. Louis Browns pitcher Urban Shocker pitched both games of a doubleheader. The Browns were on the road in Chicago, and I'm not certain why it was necessary for Shocker to pitch both games, but he did. He threw a complete game in Game 1, giving up 2 runs, walking 1 and striking out 1 in a 6-2 win. He pitched another full 9 in Game 2, walking 2 with no strikeouts, and another 6-2 complete game win. On this day in 2004, Tiger Woods lost his #1 ranking. Now, Tiger had been on top of the golf world since winning his 3rd consecutive major championship in 1999. When he raised the PGA Championship trophy at Medina that year, he became the #1 golfer in the world. Now, of course, that was not the first time he'd actually climbed the ladder to become the world #1. In fact, when he reclaimed it back in '99, it was the 7th time he'd held the title of world #1. He and David Duval had swapped it back and forth for a little over a year, but what made his ascent in '99 a bit more noteworthy is that it started the longest streak of a golfer hanging on to the #1 spot. On this day, 264 weeks later, he was finally dethroned. The tour was at TPC Boston for the Deutsche Bank Championship, and by the final day, it was a dogfight between Tiger, Adam Scott, and 41-year-old Vijay Singh. Tiger was playing some of his best golf of the year. He said after the tournament that he felt like he actually played like a world #1 during the tournament, but his misfortune on the front 9 par 5s on Sunday, where he bogeyed both, ended up costing him. Still, he did battle back on the backside, and with 5 holes to play, he was tied for the lead with Singh. Vijay had a little more left in the tank, though. He birdied 3 of the final 4 holes to card a final round 69 to beat Tiger and Adam Scott by 3 shots. It was Vijay's 21st career win and the 10th in the previous 2 seasons, which put him in position to take over the top ranking on this day. Vijay managed to hold on to the top spot for 26 weeks, until he and Tiger traded it back and forth several times during the '05 season. When Tiger retook the #1 ranking the second week of June 2005, he started an even longer streak that continued for 281 weeks, which is the current record. Scottie Scheffler is the current #1 player in the world, and he's been there for the past 120 weeks. On this day in 1975, tennis player Martina Navratilova applied for asylum in the U.S. At this point, Navratilova was an 18-year-old Czechoslovakian. Her star was on the rise in tennis. She'd finished second in both the Australian and French Opens. She had been the 2 seed at Wimbledon before losing in straight sets to Margaret Court in the quarters. She'd just wrapped up play in the U.S. Open the night before, where she had been defeated in straight sets by eventual champion Chris Evert. Czechoslovakia was a communist country that certainly provided some challenges for Navratilova to live under, so she defected and applied for asylum in the U.S. She was granted citizenship in 1981. She would go on to win 18 major singles titles and spend a total of 332 weeks as the world's #1 women's tennis player. On this day in 1978, Adolf Dassler died. Now, if the name Adolf, or as he was known to close friends, Adi Dassler, does not sound familiar, well, maybe the shoe brand he started with his brother Rudolph will. The Dassler brothers started the shoe brand Adidas, and yeah, I'm doing the U.S. pronunciation of that, but they started Adidas in the mid to late 1920s. But a rift between the two brothers occurred in the early 30s, with Rudolph saying it was because of Adolf's wife, Kathy, who drove a wedge between the two. Around 1933, Rudolph split off from Adi's company to form his own shoe company that he called Puma. Now, Adi had success with Adidas, beginning with the 1936 Olympics. American Jesse Owens wore Adidas for the long jump and his sprint races. When Adolf died on this day, he had not spoken to his brother in over 30 years. On this day in 1981, the NFL put the Lester-Hayes rule into effect. And as a kid, I used to love watching the Raiders play, mostly because I loved to see Lester Hayes. One, because he was one of the best shutdown corners in the game at the time, and two, I wanted to see how much stickum he'd actually put on himself that day. Hayes had been introduced to stickum, which is pretty much what it says it is, by his teammate Fred Biletnikoff when he was a rookie. Biletnikoff used it just on his hands, though, so it would be a little bit easier to catch a Kenny Stabler bullet. Hayes seemed to jump into a vat of it before each game. He covered himself in it. You could have hugged a pine tree and come away cleaner. Superglue was afraid of getting stuck to Lester Hayes. Well, on this day, Rule 5, Article 4, Item 8 went into effect. It said that, well, basically, you could not apply a sticky or slippery substance to your body, jersey, or any other part of your uniform. Nobody was swimming or lubing up with Vaseline at this point, and so the rule really became known as the Lester Hayes Rule for all the stickum that he was putting on himself for a game. Prior to this, Hayes had 25 interceptions in his first 4 years in the league. After the rule, that number dropped to 14 in his final 6. So everybody did simple math and said, it was the stickum, right? Here's the thing. Stickum was not magnetic. Hayes still had to cover and get to the football. Second, how about quarterbacks stop throwing to the guy that he was covering? In Super Bowl 18 in January 1984, he was a blanket on Art Monk and Charlie Brown, so much so that Joe Theismann stopped looking that way. It's one of the great omissions from the NFL Hall of Fame that Lester Hayes has not been elected. And the only reason he's not in is because the guys who vote think he cheated somehow, even though the rule he became known for did not come into effect until this day in 1981. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. The slowest spinning object in the universe is our next-door neighbor planet Venus. You can walk faster than it spins. In fact, a day on the Venusian surface is longer than its year. Using Earth days as the measure, it takes about 243 days for Venus to spin one revolution, but only 235 days to go around the Sun. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.